Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Kunja Vihari Gopi Jana Radha Giridhari Gopi Jana Radha Giridhari Gopi Jana Radha Giridhari Jaya Gopi Jana Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yashodanandana Raja Janarandana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Sorry. Jayam Vishnu Pakar Mahamsa Pari Raja Kacharya Ashtotara Shata Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ishkan Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pakar Mahamsa Pari Raja Kacharya Ashtotara Shata Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnav Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jaya Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Namesake Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopa Gopanath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Pranath Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Iskand Varma Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Samavita Bhakti Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Brahmanande, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayan Namaskritya. Naram Chaiva Narottamam. Devam Saraswatam Vyasam. Tato Jayam Hridayat. Nastapreshu abhutreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in the classes on the Bhagavatam and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service under the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, so today is January 7th, 2024, and we will be reading Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order. And we'll be doing chapter 20, Lord Vishnu's appearance in the sacrificial arena, Maharaj Kriti. We'll be doing verse 29. Ajakyata tvam ata eva sadhavo Vyutasta maya guna vibramodayam Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam Nimitamanyad bhagavana vidmahe Vajantyata tvam ata eva sadhavo Vyutasta maya guna vibramodayam Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam Nimitamanyad bhagavana vidmahe Vajantyata tvam ata eva sadhavo Vyutasta maya guna vibramodayam Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam Nimitamanyad bhagavana vidmahe. Okay, please chant.
Ajantyata tvam ata eva sadhavo
Ajantyata tvam ata eva sadhavo
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Nimitam anyad bhagavana vidmahe
Nimitamanyad bhagavana. Okay, who's next?
Vajantyata tvam ata eva sadhavo
Vajantyattam jarateva sadhavo
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Bhavat parunasmaranarite satam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Nimitamanya bhagavana vidmahe
Nimitamanya bhagavana vidmahe
Vajantyatvam mata eva sadhavo
Vajantyata tvamadeva sadhavo
Yudastamaya guna
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Nimitamanya bhagavana vidmahe
Nimitamanya bhagavana vidmahe
Vajantyata tvamata eva sadhavo
Vajantyata tvamadeva sadhavo
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Yudastamaya guna vibramodayam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Bhavat paranusmaranavrite satam
Tamanyad Bhagavan Vidmahe.
Nane Samanya Bhagavana Vidmahe. Anyone else? All right, let's do word for word. Vajanti,
Vajanti,
they worship.
they worship.
Ata,
Ata,
therefore.
therefore.
Tvam,
Tvam,
you.
you.
Ata,
Ata, eva,
eva, therefore.
therefore.
Sarava,
Sarava,
all saintly persons.
all saints.
Udasta,
You, Dasa,
who dispel
dispel.
Maya Guna,
Maya Guna,
the modes of material nature.
the most of material nature.
Vibrama,
Vidmana,
misconceptions.
misconceptions.
Udayam,
Udayam,
produced.
produced.
Avat, your.
Your
Pada,
Pada,
lotus feet. Anusma, persons.
great saviors.
Reason. Anyat,
Anya,
other. Bhagavan,
Bhagavan.
O Supreme Personality of Godhead.
O Supreme Personality of God.
Na, not. Vidmahe. Translation by great saintly persons who are always liberated, take to your devotional service, because only by devotional service can one be relieved from the illusions of material existence. O my Lord, there is no reason for the liberated who is offering prayers to Lord Vishnu after he's appeared in the sacrificial arena. We know that King Prithu had made 99 horse sacrifices. He tried to do 100, but Lord Vishnu, Lord Indra stole his 100th horse, so he couldn't do 100 horse sacrifices. And Lord Brahma came and told him to just continue anyway, because there's no reason to do 100 horse sacrifices, since he already knew the purpose of why they were doing that. And so Lord Vishnu was pleased and he appeared. So it's not enough to just renounce material attachments. In the purport, it talks about, let's see, the Jnani understands this fact and therefore ceases to work and takes to karma sannyas. So it's not enough to just do that. I mean, you can renounce the material world and you're still not going to be satisfied. What you need to have full satisfaction is to serve Krishna, to do devotional service. And in the material world, this idea is around in some form. So there's like in 12-step meetings, they'll say, you can only keep what you have by giving it away. This is also known as the saying, it's better to give than to receive, And so why is that? Why is it better to give than to receive? Because you derive satisfaction from it, right? And so when you're serving Krishna, you're actually, that's the only way to be fully satisfied, is by doing devotional service. So who can tell me what devotional service is besides you? Anybody? Chanting, sure. Anybody else? Ethan? Very good, yes, exactly.
Pleasing Krishna's senses instead of
Yeah, exactly.
Manifesting the role of Radharani into the material world. In a sense, yeah, serving Krishna.
Okay. Yeah, Kirtaneshwar.
Pleasing Krishna's senses.
Yeah. Yeah, do you want to get the mic? I think everybody's doing that, but.
Eating a lot of olive.
Yeah, eating a lot of halibut, exactly. I'm good at that one too. All right. Very good. So yeah, devotional service means activities performed for the pleasure of Lord Krishna with devotion and ultimately not mixed with any desire for personal pleasure. So it's not enough for us to just realize, okay, we're a spirit soul, because that's great. That's a wonderful realization that we should have. But that's not enough to satisfy the soul. It's just know that we are a spirit soul. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says, without devotional service, all other methods for spiritual self-realization are weak and insignificant. Unless one comes to the devotional service of Lord Krishna, jnana and yoga cannot give the desired results. So you see so many people that are kind of doing their own version, a concocted version of spiritual life, right? They want to become enlightened. They want to become a big spiritual person, kind of a cool guy or girl. But it doesn't appear to be working, and that's because they're missing this key element of doing devotional service. And Srimad Bhagavatam says, the supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which we can attain to loving devotional service under the Transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted to completely satisfy the self. So, although some of us might not be completely there, it's still pious to do devotional service, even if perhaps you're doing it, I'm doing this nice, I'm leading this nice kirtan, and all the people will like me, Eventually, you can get to the platform of doing pure devotional service, but it's very rare. And we want that service to be unmotivated and uninterrupted, to be completely satisfying. So I was thinking about things that are satisfying. Think about if you have like a really messy closet, and you organize it, and you spend a lot of time organizing it, and you finally finished, and that's pretty satisfying, right? You look at your closet and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, great, it's all clean, it's all everything's in order. But that satisfaction is not going to last. I mean, ultimately, you're going to get bored of looking at your clean closet and not be so satisfied with it anymore. But with devotional service, that doesn't happen. You can be completely satisfied as long as your service is unmotivated and uninterrupted. So Bhagavad Gita 8:28 says, a person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing sacrifices, undergoing austerities, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all of these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme eternal abode. So we could spend our time, sitting in a forest, renouncing the world, and doing our best to, keep our mind directly on the Lord. But that can be difficult in this age, if not downright impossible. Right? I mean, it's difficult for us to focus our mind because there's so much going on all the time. And even if we were able to find a section of the forest that, didn't have, hikers wandering through, or litter blowing through in the breeze, or planes flying overhead, it would still be very difficult for us to, in this age of Kali, to focus our minds and do those kinds of austerities properly. We just can't do it. But what we can do is we can clean the temple, we can make garlands, we can worship the deities, we can do these things and use our senses in the service of Krishna. And that is a much easier path than doing all those austerities, or doing all kinds of rituals extremely perfectly, which I don't think we could do. I mean, maybe there's somebody, maybe you could, Ethan. I don't know. You've been doing a lot of studying. And so that's what's so wonderful about devotional service. So who knows what some of the basic principles of devotional service are? Does anybody know? You might know.
Basically,
Okay, so the first one is accepting the shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, So that's one of the basic. So there's about 10 here. This comes from the Nectar of Devotion. Do you know any of the other ones?
I think I do probably know that, but not.
Yeah. Okay, so accepting the shelter of a spiritual master, becoming initiated by the spiritual master, obeying the orders of the spiritual master with faith and devotion, following in the footsteps of the great acharyas under the directions of the spiritual master, inquiring from the spiritual master how to advance in Krishna consciousness. So that's just like the first 5. What do those all have in common? Spiritual master, right? That's because we can't just speculate our way through spirituality. It's just not going to work. We need to get our information from somebody who's done it, who's seen it, who's been there. And I've talked to a few people that said, well, I don't need a spiritual master, you know. And one in particular said that they get their knowledge directly from the source. I'm assuming they meant directly from Krishna. And when I pointed out that, well, Krishna himself took on a spiritual master, just to give us an example, they didn't really have much to say about that. So that means all of us need to take shelter of a spiritual master in some way, rather than doing it on our own. So, okay. So number 6, be prepared to give up anything material for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This means that we are engaged in the devotional service of Krishna, but we must be prepared to give up something which we may not like to give up. And also we have to accept something which we may not want to accept. So I think that we're all pretty used to the idea of having to give up something we don't like, but sometimes it can be a little more difficult to accept something that we don't like. You know, maybe you're having to tolerate a situation that's really uncomfortable, but you're doing it for Krishna's service. And so we must remember to do that. Number 7, residing in a sacred place of pilgrimage like Dwarka or Vrindavan. Number 8, accepting only what is necessary or dealing with the material world only as far as necessary. And 9, observing the fasting day on Ekadasi like today. Today's Ekadasi. And 10, worshiping sacred trees like the banyan tree. So these are the basic principles of devotional service. So let's see. So there's a lot more to this. So there's some more instructions. One should rigidly give up the company of non-devotees. One should not instruct a person who is not desirous or accepting of devotional service. One should not be very enthusiastic about constructing costly temples or monasteries. One should not try to read too many books, nor should one develop the idea of earning his livelihood by lecturing on or professionally reciting Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. One should not be neglectful in ordinary dealings. And so that's one that's important to remember too, because we're representing Krishna, we're devotees of Krishna, so we don't want to like go out and swindle somebody when we're trying to sell our car or something like that, right? Because we're representing Krishna. So we should not, 6, one should not be under the spell of lamentation in loss or jubilation in gain. So this is a big one, things happen to devotees and sometimes they get so down and depressed and they just can't go on. And ultimately, when something really great happens, sometimes devotees will think, okay, I don't need this anymore, and they just go, So we don't want to do those. One should not disrespect the demigods. One should not give unnecessary trouble to any living entity. One should carefully avoid the various offenses in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord or in worshiping the deity in the temple. And one should be very intolerant towards blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his devotees. So it's kind of a long list. And then I have one more. Who knows the 9 methods of devotional service? Yeah, anybody else? Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atman Nivedanam. Right, so hearing, chanting, remembering, offering service to his lotus feet, offering him worship in the temple, offering prayers to him, working as his servant, making friendship with him, and unreservedly surrendering to him. So we try to do most of those things every day. So, right, and then last of all these lists that I have, I'm going to read, what are the characteristics of pure devotional service? I know you know some of these. You want to say one?
First two are Vaishali, Shubha, that devotional service destroys all material miseries, and devotional service brings all auspiciousness.
Right. Does anybody know any other ones? All right. Yeah, do you want to try?
Sri Krishna Karshini, devotional service is the only means to attract Krishna.
Mm-hmm.
Devotional service derives the pleasure of liberation.
Mm-hmm.
Devotional service is very rarely attained.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one,
And pure devotional service automatically puts one in transcendental pleasure. Oh, it's interesting. So you went from the top down and then from the bottom up, and it was that one in the middle. All right, very good. All right, so these are all characteristics of pure devotional service. And so the reason I brought all that up is because I find it super interesting here in the verse. It says, great saintly persons who are always liberated take pure devotional service, because only by devotional service can one be relieved from the illusions of material existence. So people who are already liberated are still doing devotional service. And I think that's an important point, because I think a lot of people think, okay, getting liberated, that's it, I'm finished. It's the goal. But really it's not. The goal is to develop love of God, to develop love of Krishna. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of stories, a couple of people who demonstrated that. So first I want to talk about Narada Muni. So Narada Muni, I find to be really fascinating. You know, he's a transcendental spaceman. He's traveling all around and sharing the holy name with everybody all over the universe, all over multiple universes. So how did he get there? How did he do that? So if we go back 2 lifetimes before that, before he became Narada Muni, he was actually a Gandharva, and he was very, very handsome, and he could sing very nicely, and he just had a beautiful, beautiful voice and beautiful face, and all the ladies loved him. They just thought, oh, wow, he is just great, you know. I mean, just think about, you know, the most popular rock star or rap star or whatever nowadays, and how, you know, you go to one of their concerts or something and you just see these women just screaming, carrying on, and just crazy, wanting to do anything, right? Just to have a little bit of association with them. So now imagine how much more that would be if you were a literal Gandharva, right? You're just a spiritual rock star, okay? And so these, the ladies loved him, and he kind of became a little playboy. And this caused him to lose his spiritual perspective and fall back into a materialistic life. And so one day he was at a festival that the Prajapatis had set up, and he was doing a kirtan. And his kirtan was singing the glories of the demigods, and this upset some of the devotees that were there, because kirtan's only supposed to glorify the Supreme Lord. And so they ended up cursing him to be born as a Sudra and to be unattractive also. So his next life, he was born as a Sudra. He was born as the son of a maid. And but she was a very pious woman, and she was actually doing service to these sages. She was a maid for these sages. and would help them. And so her son would help also. And because of this, he got to take the remnants of these sages' food, and he got to listen into their discourses. And eventually, one day, his mother went out somewhere, and she got bit by a snake, and she died. And then he remembered his time with the sages, and he was able to focus his mind on God, and he advanced spiritually because of that. He focused his mind on Krishna. And then at the end, let's see. So at the end of his life, he was completely intoxicated with God consciousness. He meditated day and night. And then he became a wandering mendicant. And he dedicated every moment to the pursuit of spiritualization. So one day during Narada Muni's meditation, the Lord appeared within his heart, and he could see the Lord. And then the Lord disappeared. And so he was just so distraught. He was so grief-stricken by this. And he tried and tried, but he couldn't regain that vision of our Supreme Lord. And so his realization was that the Lord doesn't just come when we call him, and that we need to do service and make ourselves not that so that we can see God, but so that God will want to see us. So Krishna will want to see us. So, yeah. So then Narada heard the Lord's voice telling him that it's not possible to see God if one is not completely pure. The Lord told Narada another thing. He had shown Narada his form out of kindness to increase his longing for him. The Lord's enticement worked, and Narada now meditated on the form of the Lord more intensely than ever before. Hearing and chanting of the glories of Krishna engulfed his soul, and he became oblivious of the world around him. When the moment of death came, he was ready. Being freed from all material taints, Narada told his disciple Vyasadeva, I met with death just as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Transition was seamless, and when the material world was again created for the material cosmos, manifests in cycles. Narada was born from the creator god Brahma's heart as his most dear son. Narada had reached perfection. And so then he became born as Narada Muni. So Narada Muni he reached perfection, he's liberated, but he's continuing to do his devotional service. So we know all these stories where he's traveling around and he's enlightening people. He's causing things to happen so that people can make progress in their spiritual life. So one is, this writer I was reading said that he's instigating. He's an instigator. And so one example of this is that when Kamsa hears the voice that says, oh, your sister's 8th child is going to kill you, right? That was Narada Muni. And he did that to spur on the appearance of Krishna. Another example is when he goes to Rukmini and he starts telling Rukmini just how amazing Krishna is, just talking him up. And Rukmini just immediately falls in love with Krishna. She hasn't even seen him, but she immediately falls in love with him and surrenders to him. And then she refuses to marry Shishupal because of this. And Krishna ends up kidnapping Rukmini and marries her. And Shishupal is very upset with this. And I'll talk a little bit later about what happens with Shishupal. Another example is when Narada Muni comes and he talks to Vyasadeva because Vyasadeva is distressed, right? He's distressed. He had just spent all this time compiling the Vedas, and he's distressed. And he's not satisfied. And Narada Muni reminds him to describe the Lord, to describe Krishna, to describe and he writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. And so that was why he was feeling dissatisfied because he had compiled all the Vedas and then didn't talk about the form, names, and pastimes of Lord Krishna. So these are three examples of how Narada Muni is still doing devotional service, even though he's already liberated. So another example I have is Jai and Vijay, right? So the beginning, Jai and Vijay, they were gatekeepers. And they were gatekeepers in Vaikuntha for the Lord. And when the four Kumaras came, they looked like little children. And they said, we would like to see the Lord. And Jai and Vijay said, no, these are just kids. Like, no, I'm sorry, the Lord's sleeping. He can't see you right now. So they got very upset. And they cursed him to be born in a material world again. So the Lord came and Jai and Vijay were like, please, can you reverse this curse? And he said, look, I can't reverse the curse. But what I can do is you can take 7 births as my devotee, or you can take 3 births as my enemy. So they didn't want to be away from the presence of the Lord that long. So they said, okay, we'll take the 3 births as your enemy. So the first birth, they were born as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So we know Hiranyaksha, he managed to get the earth to fall into the material ocean, into the cosmic ocean. And who knows which avatar came and killed him. Damodar Prabhu. What's that? Lord Varaha. Yeah, Lord Boar, exactly. Yeah, Lord Boar came and fought with him. Their battle took like 1,000 years. And he picked up the earth and placed it back. Hiranyakashipu, I think we all know who that is. So what avatar came and took out Hiranyakashipu? Yeah, very good. All right. Yeah. So, and then in their next life, Jai and Vijay were born as Ravana and Kumbhakarna. And so who knows who killed them? Yeah, very good. Ram and Lakshman. All right, and then in Dwarpa Yuga, their next life, they were born as Shishupal and Dantavarka. So who knows who killed them? Yeah, Krishna and Balaram. All right, very good. Yeah, and Shishupal was actually, he was then absorbed into, that's one of my favorite parts, is when he was killed by the Sudarshan Chakra, he was then absorbed into Krishna's body. So that was in personal liberation then. So I was wondering if anybody had any more examples of maybe great devotees of Krishna having to take on the role of demons or take on another lifetimes. Does anybody have any examples?
One thing I want to say was that Shishupal, the details are in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but he like merged into Krishna, but he was actually also reinstated in his spiritual position. Right. I think it's in reference to Jagai and Madai that actually came again as Jagai and Madai and then were reinstated. And I think it also it's in the first Adi Leela, it kind of describes that that like Lord Nrsimhadev is eternally manifest, and that not every time is Hiranyakashipu like a Jai and Vijay. Yeah. So it's like a special occurrence. And then of course I told you I was going to mention Vritrasura, who's I think my favorite pastime. Vritrasura was King Chitraketu, but he offended Lord Shiva or offended Parvati by laughing at Lord Shiva and therefore was cursed to become a demon. But even when he was a demon, he was still a devotee and he offers very beautiful prayers, which are my favorite prayers in the Bhagavatam. So Vritrasura. Right. Yeah, very nice. And also I think that's important to remember that
you know, you never know who you're talking to, who you're dealing with. That's why we should be respectful and kind to everybody. Because even though, you know, Hiranyakashipu seemed like pretty bad guy, you know, he's doing so many horrible things to his son. He's actually one of the doorkeepers in Vaikuntha. So just remember that next time someone's really giving you a hard time. And I'm telling myself that too. So just be kind and respectful to everyone. So the last thing I wanted to bring up was this verse, Bhagavad Gita 9:2. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. Now that the purport to that verse has so much amazing information about devotional service, and I encourage you all to read it. I mean, I know you've probably all read it before, but read it again. But I'm going to read this one part, just like a small paragraph. It is said here that devotional service is eternally existing. It is not as the Mayavadi philosophers claim, although they sometimes take to so-called devotional service. Their idea is that as long as they are not liberated, they will continue their devotional service. But at the end, when they become liberated, they will become one with God. Such temporary time-serving devotional service is not accepted as pure devotional service. Actual devotional service continues even after liberation. When the devotee goes to the spiritual planet in the kingdom of God, he is also engaged there in serving the Supreme Lord. He does not try to become one with the Supreme Lord. So even when you're liberated, you're still going to be doing devotional service. So, because it's joyfully performed, it's ever increasing, joyfully performed. So, with that, is there any comments or questions or maybe stories? Yes, Parmeshwar Prabhu.
Thank you for the nice class. That was a lot of good information there. I just was wondering though, where did you get that Narada Muni was the one that said that in the sky or whatever to Kamsa about the eighth kid will kill you?
So I actually found an article someone had written, and they said it in that article. I can give you the author after class.
If there's a reference that he has, because I've never heard that.
Yeah.
That Narada Muni was the one who said, you know, to Kamsa when he was driving the chariot for his sister, that the eighth kid will be killing you.
Yeah, that's right in the Krishna.
That's Narada Muni?
Yeah, because he wanted to get the legal going.
Yeah.
I mean, he brings it, when Kamsa starts chilling out, and not killing the kids, then Narada Muni comes in.
But the initial one.
Yeah, it doesn't say Narada Muni.
I think they just called it premonitions.
Yeah, premonition.
They started raging out and trying to crash the chariot.
Right, it doesn't say Narada Muni.
Yeah. I'll have to look.
I
Yeah.
don't know about that one.
Well, now I'm unsure. So.
You can say things, but not necessarily that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you, but
Yeah.
in reference to the article.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe he's got a Purana, you know, I don't know if it says it, but
Yeah.
it doesn't say it.
Right.
I also read only when comes about the killing of the kids, then we can.
Then he will speed things up when the kids were, not getting killed.
Right.
Because those were destined to die. Their offenders were wrong. Normally speeds things up that way because it comes to befriend everybody, not commit all these atrocities.
They may say more in the 10th canto text.
That's
So as far as when Krishna fights, he's fighting with demons.
Mhm.
Actually, anybody who fights with Krishna, Prabhupada confirmed, they're all devotees.
Mhm.
And Hari Shari took this to Prabhupada and said, even Duryodhana, the big villain in the Mahabharata, Prabhupada said, yes. He's not, when Krishna wants, he doesn't just fight with any nonsense. He picks somebody who's actually a devotee. So it was like, whoa, even Duryodhana. somewhere as a devotee. And the other thing too about, be careful who you're, what did you say? Be careful who you're thinking ill of because he might be a devotee even though he's a
Yeah,
big demon.
just to be kind and respectful to everybody, even if they're
Well,
really
yeah.
bugging you.
Well, that's in the Leela, of course.
Yeah.
But I mean, still, practically speaking, like when Hiranyakashipu was terrorizing the universe, people say, you gotta take care of this guy. And went to Vishnu, and so we can't just think, oh, I better be nice to this guy. He might be a devotee or something.
Well, you can be kind and respectful, but that doesn't mean that, like someone's trying to murder me, I'm not gonna be like,
Right.
oh, please let me respect you,
You're the eternal servant of Krishna, like we all are. So.
No, I mean, we've discussed this so many times, just like if you can be kind and respectful and love a tiger as a spirit soul, but you're not going to run over and hug him, right? You're going to stay away from him. You're going to use your common sense.
Okay.
So,
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah.
It came across differently.
And it's possible to be kind and respectful and still maintain justice. It's possible to be kind and respectful and still maintain the law.
Right.
You're done your sword,
I wanted to say, kind of changing the here. In terms of devotees who are liberated, you gave the example of Jai and Vijay who became devotees, but I mean the great example is the four Kumaras and Shukadev Goswami. Both of them were already liberated souls who then took up devotional service. And right in that same section of the Bhagavatam, it's described how the four Kumaras, they smelled the tulsi leaves offered to the lotus feet of Vishnu, and just by that scent, they became so attracted to Vishnu that they became devotees, and then they became, some of the greatest devotees in the universe. So even the liberated souls all become devotees. And that's confirmed so many places. Yeah, nice point.
Earlier in class, you had mentioned worshiping sacred trees. I think it was number 10.
Yeah.
And Indradyumna Swami's most recent YouTube class, which came out on Friday, it was all about sacred trees and trees in general. So it's really worth checking out if you have the time. It's about a half hour long. Indradyumna Swami's most recent, it came out Friday. It's about a half hour long. It was very, very good. He goes into great detail about sacred trees and just trees in general. So it's worth checking out.
Definitely check it out. All right. You smiling for a reason or just out of joy? Okay. All right. Is there any more questions or comments?
His comment was perfect because he's a plant guy.
Yeah.
So his insights.
Have more focus on that class. Some of the others.
Prabhuji, you work for the BBT and everything, so I have to be very careful with this, but I really have to see that reference to where everyone that Krishna kills is a devotee in disguise.
Anybody who plays the part of Krishna's enemy is actually not an ordinary person.
So I heard he's not an ordinary person, but I didn't hear he's a devotee though, like Duryodhana and many others.
When Krishna wants to fight, Prabhupada said, this is not how to put it. I have to get the reference.
I think it's not an ordinary person, but I don't recall reading where they're actually devotees though, because I remember at some points Prabhupada says that this being is actually a demon. So I'm just for the sake of everybody's thinking what went in. It's just, I don't know, that might be room for clarification, just throwing that out there, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I'll hope them didn't make offenses, but just for the care of.
Your time.
There's one point in the CC where it kind of, like I was talking about with Hiranyakashipu, it discusses that a little bit. So you remember where it's at, but it's discussing like that, not every, it discusses Hiranyakashipu and then that there's other Hiranyakashipus and that they're not all Jai and Vijay. It's in the CC, Adi Leela. So it might be worth looking into on that if anybody's super interested. I think it also says, that, some of these demons, they're actually, like they're devotees in the sense that they're always thinking of Krishna. They're not pure devotees, but they're always thinking of Krishna, whereas give the example that Hiranyakashipu is always thinking of Vishnu. But Vena was just like a pure demon who just hated God and he wasn't even obsessed with God. He just hated God. So
He's always thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
But very clearly not a devotee.
yeah.
And not a devotee in disguise is my understanding.
And the verse was in the seventh canto. Narada Muni, he's so in an ecstasy, he's actually jealous of, was it Kamsa? Yeah. Kamsa. Yeah, but then and Prabhupada clarifies, but he wasn't thinking Krishna favorably, so we shouldn't imitate Kamsa. But still, Narada Muni was just, he was wishing he could be as focused on Krishna as Kamsa.
All right, is there any more comments or questions? All right, well, I'm here then. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Oh,
X.